Hi, welcome to Midwest Magic Cleaning. My name is Dancing Machine, and today we're going to be doing a lot of trash removal. This video is the third and a final in a playlist where the first video we did a living room and a hallway, the second video we did a kitchen and a laundry room, and in this one we'll be finishing up with 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, and trust me, they are bad. This house is owned by a family who has a combination of hoarding disorder, severe ADHD, autism, depression, and possibly some PTSD. So this is not a single person's fault. And before we get deep into the video, I want to talk about that word for a little bit, the word fault. On this channel, I work with people who have mental illness, or at the very least common disorders. And because of that, I will explain how the disorders and mental illness cause the houses to get into this condition. However, every day of the week, I will ban a handful of people from the comments section because they're not looking to understand how this disorder and how these mental illnesses affect a house. They're looking to blame someone or to call them lazy. I am fully aware that those people do exist, that there are people who are just lazy and just don't want to clean their house and it becomes this monstrosity. I purposely don't work with those people. In my experience, those people represent a very small microscopic fraction of houses that get into this condition. Overall, the people who need my help have true mental disorders or mental illnesses that seem insurmountable. So if you come onto these videos and your goal is to blame someone for a house getting into this condition, this isn't the channel for you. I would rather have 6 subscribers who are empathetic than 600,000 subscribers who just want to show up and bag on people and dogpile on them. So let's talk about a couple questions that I get fairly often. The first being, why aren't you using a shovel? There are a couple reasons for that. The first reason is it's none of your heckin' business, son. The second is that in most places that we clean, we're not dealing with a lot of trash. We're dealing with actual items that could have value. We found birth certificates, credit cards, life insurance policies that are still active. We found the deed to like 20 or 30 acres of land, jewelry, family photos. We found wedding photos from the 1800s. We found car titles and keys. We found a thriving colony of moose druids. Now, we were able to relocate those to an enchanted forest, so don't worry about them. They mostly just frolic. Moose druids are notorious for frolicking, and if you find them in the bottom of a hoard, there's just no room to frolic. But everything else, if we were to use a shovel and just shovel all that crap into a trash bag, we're going to lose that rather than find it. Now, in this house, we actually did use a shovel through most of it, but you have to remember that there is a bunch of clothing. One of the things they hoarded was just a massive mountain of clothing, and so that's interspersed throughout all the trash. When you try to shovel that up, the shovel hits the clothing and stops itself. So you actually can't shovel into the pile until you get the clothing out of it. So that stuff has to be picked out by hand. And while we're doing that, we're keeping our eyes out for anything that may be valuable, which in this case wasn't much because this house had a massive black mold issue. So we kept very little from this house, but we're still going to keep our eyes peeled just in case we find something that's like crazy expensive. Like if we were to shuffle through all this stuff and we're picking it up by hand and we find a Ferrari in there, black mold can be washed off of a Ferrari, so we don't want to just shovel that into a trash can and throw it away. But that's extremely possible if you're just going to town and shoveling and not paying attention to what you're grabbing out of the piles. People have suggested before, why don't you get a pitchfork that can get under the clothes and it's a little bit easier to get them out? And it's like, nah, it's just as easy to pick them up by hand. I'm not going to go buy a pitchfork, carry it around in my car, then risk gouging that into the floor. It's just as easy for me to just pick the clothes up by hand and figure out whether they're still good or whether they're going to have to be thrown away because they have black mold on them. Not to mention, if I start using a pitchfork, then I'm going to get the old MacDonald Had a Farm song stuck in my head, and then I'm screwed for like 2 weeks. And now it's stuck in there anyway. So thank you for that. Thank you, pitchfork suggesting people. So we're going to start in the bedroom of what used to be a child's bedroom or a young person's bedroom. No one has been in this house for 4 years or more. I've spoken to her and we have a lot of things in common because we are both autistic, and she would have what I would refer to as like trash blindness or clutter blindness. So she grew up being used to conditions like this where the trash and the clothing has piled and piled and piled until in her mind the floor is just where the trash goes because that's where it exists. So because of that, this room had more trash than any other room in the house outside of the living room. If you haven't seen the living room video, you should. It is massive. The trash, that is. It's a massive mound of trash and clothing clothing and pillows. It just, if you haven't watched that video, definitely go back and check it out. It's in a playlist with this video. So for this room, we just had to remove all the clothing that was blocking the shovel. Then once all that was out, then we could start shoveling out trash. One of the questions I got in the last 2 videos that I haven't answered yet is, how did all the black mold start? Like, where did all the black mold come from? It started in the bathroom because that room it's where all the moisture and stuff is going to collect, and it started on the ceiling and started working its way down the walls. But it started really setting in once the trash had piled up so high, because they'll get done with like one of those gas station styrofoam drinks and they'll throw it on the floor, and the little bit of dribble or ice or whatever is left in it eventually leaks out onto the clothing. The clothing holds on to the moisture, which then breeds black mold. Over time, that moisture spreads, the house gets super humid. It can't dry itself out because all the trash and clothing are covering up the vents for the central air and central heat. A side effect of those central systems is that they dehumidify a house. However, if all the vents are covered up, then the air can't get out to dehumidify anything. On top of the vents being covered up, this room had a special problem in that the trash heap had been there for so long and had settled so much that it eventually popped the cap off on the vents, and a bunch of containers of like ketchup and mustard and trash fell into the vents that I had to fish out by hand. So not only were the vents covered up from the outside, but they were clogged up from the inside. Now, because of that chain reaction which causes the black mold to spread, almost nothing in the house could be saved, nothing could be donated, and they won't be able to move back into this house until they get a mold specialist to take care of all that. That's not something I can just clean off. There was so much of it that this is going to require a specialist and somebody who is an expert in their field, or at least has a bunch of experience in black mold. I could take care of small spots of black mold, but this was so much that it would have been dangerous for me to disturb it. Because of that, we're not going to do any deep cleaning in this house. We are going to wipe down everything. We're going to sweep and mop the floors and get the crud off, but we're not going to spend really any time scrubbing down big giant black patches that are on, say, the baseboards or the walls. And she is going to have deep cleaners come into this house once the mold is removed, but we're going to give them about a 90% head start. Now, that being said, even though we're not going to go crazy on this place, the before and after pictures will blow your mind. It looks almost like a brand new house when we're done. But yeah, this is one of the few houses where when we've cleaned it, we had to give ourselves a stopping point just for the sheer idea of safety. Now, in all of these rooms, bedrooms and bathrooms that we're going to be doing today, we had to start with the camera outside because there was so much trash and so much clothing that the doors haven't been opened in probably about a decade. At least not fully open, because there was so much stuff packed behind them that I had to clean that out in order to be able to open the door fully. When you're cleaning a house like this, there are two things that get me really excited. And I don't know if it's just me or if all other cleaners who do what I do experience this. We'll have to ask Clean with Barbie, Ari Katarina, A Beautiful Mess, Colleen Cleans. But those two things are when I'm able to open the door fully for the first time in, say, 10 years. That's an exciting thing for me because we've done something that hasn't been done since my kid was in high school. The other is when you breach the mounds of debris and actually see the floor for the first time. And this particular house, seeing that floor was amazing because, strangely, the piles of clothing and trash protected the floor, and that's normally not the case. Had this gone too much longer without being cleaned up, it would have rotted through the floors. The clothing was already breaking down and decomposing, and a lot of the ones on the bottom of the pile had just disintegrated when we pulled them off the floor. Once that happens, that mold and bacteria will start attacking the floor itself and eventually rot through it. Hey, while you're watching us do this, I started sort of a semi-tradition here on the channel where I call out other YouTube channels that I personally watch, where I think if you like my channel, you'll probably like these too. So I'd like to call out 4 this week. The first is Clean the City. The guy goes by his initials AP, and if you've ever watched Al Blades, you've seen him work with him before. They're friends. He is one of the hardest working dudes I've ever seen. He just goes nonstop, and all of his messages are super positive. He's a free lawn cleanup channel, and his entire message is just help, help, help. If you're more into cleaning and decluttering, there's a channel called Real Life with Allie that doesn't have a ton of subscribers. I think she's got 13,000 as of this video, but she deals with decluttering and motivation, and her video quality and sound quality is right on the mark. It's really professional looking. She's a super sweet woman, and her personality is just nice and calm, and the whole video, it just feels like you're hanging out with a friend. One of my favorite YouTube channels of all time is called Modern Makeovers. It's a furniture restoration channel, but it's more than that. He finds trashed out pieces of furniture and restores them and makes them into just these incredible works of art. Functional furniture that looks like something you'd buy in a high-end store. But he is an editing genius, and he's extremely funny. But his work, just even if you took out the humor and the fancy, cool editing, the work itself will just blow your mind. He is an incredible person and has just an absolutely incredible channel. And the last one I'll recommend is called Get It Done with Gabby. Gabby is the most real, down-to-earth person you'll see on any cleaning channel. She doesn't have like this character or a different persona that she puts on for the camera. She's just herself. She does real-life cleanings and talks about real-life problems. And you know how everybody has that one friend who, if you're both hanging out together and you're in a really serious situation, it could be problematic for both of you to be in the same place at the same time because you'll make each other laugh, or you're going to do or say something that's going to get you both in trouble. For some reason, and I can't put my finger on why, that's the feeling I get with Gabby. That if we were both at the same place at the same time and we had to maintain composure, we probably wouldn't be allowed to sit next to each other. I think if we were friends in real life, we would be that kind of a relationship. And again, there's no reason for me to think that, but that's kind of the vibe the channel puts out for me. Anyway, if you visit any of those channels, be sure to tell them Midwest Magic Cleaning said hi. And let's get back to this cleaning. One of the things that a lot of people brought up was, how could you stand the smell? This was one of the rare houses that did not have a bad smell. The only smell that came out of here pretty much was just the smell of mold. If you've ever smelled black mold, it has a very distinct, like garden soil type of smell. And that's what this house smelled like. There was no rotting food scent. Usually a house like this smells like pet urine, but this one didn't. And in fact, a couple of the rooms smelled really good because she had a bunch of perfume and some of it spilled and broke over the years. So occasionally we'd pull up a pile of clothing, discover one of those perfume bottles, and then suddenly the whole house smelled pretty. But we had to be careful because occasionally we'd pull up clothes and then the perfume would spill on the buried moose druid, and moose druid notoriously hate perfume. They'd be like, please don't spill the perfume on me. I am a friendly moose druid. Shut up, you stupid moose
Moose?
I'm just saying I don't like the perfume.
Shut up, you smell pretty, Moose. Now get out of here.
And they would run away, smelling pretty into the sunset, shunned by their own kind for smelling so perfumey. Anyway, another question people ask me is, do I ever get mad whenever I'm cleaning a house like this? I mean, the truth is, yeah, sometimes. I mean, I'm human. But I don't get mad for the things that you would think I get mad at. I don't get mad at the owners because, again, if I was dealing with somebody who's genuinely just lazy and throwing crap everywhere for no reason, I would definitely get mad at that. What I tend to get angry over is whenever I've convinced myself that I'm almost done and then realized I've forgotten a whole big section. So I'm not getting mad at the people. I'm not getting mad at the house. I'm getting mad at myself because I put myself in a certain mindset and then jerked myself straight out of it. The most common place I do this is around the bed. I'll get a whole room done or mostly done and I'll think, yeah, we just got a couple more scoops of with the shovel and the whole thing will be done and ready to sweep and mop. Then I'll pull the bed out. And then there's like 5 more trash bags of trash underneath the bed. And someone actually asked me last week, how does so much trash get under the bed? That's just from the weight of everything piling up and smushing out all the stuff on the bottom. Or you'll throw a cup on top of the trash mound and it'll over time just kind of work its way down off the top of the pile. So it's like an avalanche of trash. It's like a trash-alanche. So as you walk by a room like this, everything looks stationary and held in place. But the truth is, as you walk through the house and you're creating vibrations, it slowly moves over time like a liquid moving at super slow motion. The loosest parts of that pile just kind of works their way under the bed and it's finding new space. It's just like a water flowing into a new area that doesn't have water in it yet. Another question I got a lot in the last video, because I explained it in the first one but not the second one, is how did I deal with all the bugs and mouse poop and blah blah blah. Strangely, shockingly, there was none of that. No mice poop, no bugs, no roaches, no bed bug. And after the first video, people asked how it was that came to be. Like, how could there be no pests in here? I have no clue, because a large part of what we were picking up was old food. They had food, they had shelter. The place was just set up as a breeding ground for any kind of pest you can imagine. They just didn't exist. And you would think you'd be able to find bodies of old ones that did exist, but no, there was no mouse. Usually we find dozens of mouse bodies in trash heaps like this, but this just didn't have them. So eat it, Mom. Mom. Oh, hey, while I've got you here, I have a big update for regular viewers of the channel. If you're not a regular viewer of the channel, I'll let you know what's going on, so I apologize to people if this sounds redundant or repetitive. Jason, who you see helping me in this video and in lots of my videos, he's 25, he's my oldest son, and this October he will be a father for the first time to a baby girl that they're naming Anya, A-N-Y-A. And that means I'll be a grandfather for the first time, so yay me. It's all about me. Many members of this channel asked if we could do a baby registry so they could buy stuff for the baby. However, Jason doesn't need stuff for the baby because that's all taken care of through his family. So the members had given their okay for us to set up a PayPal account and take donations in order to repair Jason's house. He inherited a house basically from his mother, and the house was not in great condition. So he has been slowly over time fixing this place up. So in lieu of a baby registry, people have been donating to the repairs of his house. And the big update is that not only have they paid for the repair of all of his flooring, which is almost done now, but we just gave the okay to replace all the windows in his house just yesterday. The only thing we really have to do after that is do some drywall repairs, which Jason and I can do on our own. He has 2 bathrooms that need to be fixed, but that's not a total emergency right now. I just wanted to let you know that you guys' generosity has changed his life and his wife's life and his incoming baby's life. And not only do they appreciate that, but I personally appreciate it because I want my granddaughter to come into a nice, clean, fixed house. So any additional money that continues to come through between now and October will be put toward replacing their bathtub and fixing a few minor plumbing issues here and there. But pretty much, I mean, everybody has helped them gain some major ground in getting that house back to normal. For those who still want to donate, I will leave the PayPal username in the description description of this video, it's just my email address, midwestmagiccleaning@gmail.com, and 100% of the donations that come in go straight to Jason and his family. But of major importance, that's the only place that I take donations. So if someone contacts you using my profile picture and my name saying, hey, we've also got it on Venmo or blah, 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 that's a scam. Don't do it. I only take donations at that one PayPal address, and that's it, so that people don't get screwed by scammers. But more important than all of that, if you can't afford to do something like that, for the love of God, do not do it. We know that you love and appreciate us. We know that you care about Jason and his family, and I don't want anybody putting themselves out on our behalf. But from the bottom of my cold, black, dead heart, thank you. That support means a lot to me. If there's anything that I wish I could have done more in this house, it would have been to remove some of the hard water stains as well as the black mold. But this is something I don't know if I mentioned or not in the last video, but this house had no water. There was a major plumbing issue somewhere in the house. I believe that it was a case of the plumbers not being able to get to the plumbing to fix it, or they were just too embarrassed to let them in. Either way, there was no water in the house, so we couldn't do traditional cleaning, or at least not on the level that I would have liked to have done. I mean, again, when you see the after pictures, it'll still blow your mind. It's a crazy transformation. But if we had water and we had the ability and the time and the energy to do all those little extra things, we could have genuinely gotten this house looking like Ari Katarina level professional. If you don't know who Ari Katarina is, it means you're just now getting into cleaning channels, because she's like the queen of the mountain as far as cleaning channels go. If you do know who she is, next time you watch one of her videos, tell her I said hi. But anyway, yeah, sometimes there are things we have to leave behind that bothers me. But when you do what I do, especially for a living, I make my money through YouTube, which is how I'm able to do all these cleanings for free. And yes, this was done for free. You have to give yourself a stopping point. So we did this over the course of like 4 days or something like that. If we dedicated ourselves to going crazy, like hog wild, we could have spent 2 weeks in this house just deep cleaning everything, and we would have just spent a ton of time where we didn't have time to spend. So occasionally in a house like this, I do have to tell myself, nope, you have to let this part go. You can't clean the black mold because there's so much of it, it's dangerous. You need to let a professional handle that. But still, that doesn't prevent me from looking at the house after I'm done and going, oh, I want to just clean those baseboards so bad. Then I end up having to argue with myself and tell myself, shut up, me. You need to learn how to just accept it. And, hey, man, don't talk to me like that. I am your father. You're not my real father. You're just me.
Shut up, me.
Will you guys please stop arguing? I am Friendly Moose Druid and my ears hurt when you yell.
Shut up, Moose.
I'm leaving. You guys are rude. So how do you even handle a house that's got this much stuff in it? I break it down into steps. The first step is we're going to get rid of all the trash. In doing that, if we find anything that is worthy of being kept or is safe to keep, we put that in another room separate in its own pile. So if we find a bunch of jewelry, it'll go in a box with other jewelry. We found a couple trash bags of clothing and shoes that were sealed up and therefore weren't contaminated by mold. Those got put in a keep clothing pile. Once we get all the trash out, and we filled a 40-yard dumpster completely wall to wall with things that we had to toss. Once the trash is done, then we'll start at the ceilings and we'll sweep down all the cobwebs from the ceilings, walls, bookshelves, like everything that exists had cobwebs on it in this house. We'll do the same with the ceiling fans and then allow all that dust to settle onto the floor. Then basically you just clean from the top down. You wipe down all the window sills, you wipe down shelving units, dressers, whatever has a surface on it. Then the next step is to sweep the floors, and then we typically spray all the cruddy stuff down, all the chunks of stuff that are stuck to the floor. We'll spray that down with Lysol in a pump sprayer and let that soak for just long enough to soften it up. Then we can scrape that off with a paint scraper. Then we're ready to mop. So the steps are typically trash and cobwebs / dust, then sweep. Then you can start with your cleaners on windowsills, cabinets, whatever. Then you're ready to scrape and mop. The key to this is not looking at it as we're cleaning a room. The key is our only goal is to get the trash out of this room. Once all that's done, then we look around and say we're not cleaning the room. Our only goal is to get rid of the dust and cobwebs. When you break it down into steps or phases like that, it makes the cleaning go so much smoother on you psychologically, and you get a little less worn out. If you look at this room as a whole, it's so overwhelming that you wouldn't even know where to start. So I get dozens of messages every day, hundreds per week, where people are saying things like, my dad or my grandpa is going through the same things that are happening in this video. I'm trying to help, but I don't know where to start. I'm overwhelmed. How do you do it? Can you give me any advice on how to get through this? My answer is always take it 3 feet at a time. Even if you're just regular cleaning and you're not dealing with a hoarder house, if you're overwhelmed by cleaning and you get burnout really easy, always take it 3 feet at a time. Clean this 3 feet of counter space. Now this 3 feet. Now this 3 feet until the kitchen's done. But at no point do you tell yourself, I'm going to clean the kitchen. For many people, especially people with ADHD, the idea of cleaning the kitchen is too large of a concept. It's much easier for many people to just break that down into smaller pieces. Like Ric Flair doesn't just go into a ring and say, I'm going to beat this guy. He gets into a ring and says, I'm going to work over this guy's leg so then I could slap him in a figure 4 and go to town, baby. Woo! By the way, both of these bathrooms were pretty bad. I mean, this last one especially. But you'll notice we're not doing the toilets, or at least not the inside. I did do the outside of them. But again, there's no water. But once they turn the water back on and they get everything fixed, that inside of that toilet is totally cleanable. You just get an acid-based toilet cleaner, squirt it all over the underside of the rim and all over the sides, close the toilet seat, and walk away for 24 hours. When you come back and use a scrub brush, all that stuff will come right off. If it needs a second treatment, then do a second treatment. But most of even the dark black stuff that you see in there is not just mold, it's hard water that captures that mold. So it's basically like a buildup of limescale and calcium, and then the mold grows on that. Acid-based toilet cleaner will just wipe that stuff right off the map, and then it'll scream woo at them. The hardest part of this bathroom for me wasn't the toilets, it was the bathtub. I hate doing them just because I'm really tall, I'm 6'4", and doing the bottom of a bathtub, even if you're using a long-handled scrubber, is difficult for me to do. But the more troublesome parts was actually the floor, because over time a whole bunch of shampoo and conditioner and soap had ruptured and spilled out, and when that stuff solidifies, it's actually difficult to get it off. You can take it off with a paint scraper and that's fine, but once you start scrubbing that, the soap reactivates and starts to form suds, so you have to almost clean it up by hand. You have to scrape it, then use water is usually the best thing to get it off of there because it helps dissolve it, but we didn't have water, so I ended up having to use Mr. Clean or Lysol, an actual cleaner. Both of those things together will cause a whole bunch of suds, so it's just a really tedious effort to get all that off of there. Now you may be asking why I didn't just spin kick the soap residue off the floor, and typically that's what I do. I just give it a quick spin kick and all the soap explodes off of there like a soap geyser. The problem is the bathroom was covered in black mold, and if the soap comes off from the power of my spin kick, so is the mold, and it's just going to make mold shoot all over the air. Then when it lands on my body, I've got to fight the mold spores, and I don't have the energy to fight each individual spore before I get worn out. Then the mold spores call the police, and I end up going to jail for assault. It's just a thing, and I don't want a thing. I just want this house clean. So I turned the other cheek and cleaned it like a normal person. It gets clean either way. It's just that this way takes more time. Everything else is easy. That's when we go into what I talked about earlier, where we're just sweeping cobwebs and dust, and then we start cleaning windowsills, we sweep down the walls, and we just start cleaning from the top down. So yeah, we spent 4 days cleaning up this house, but 3.5 of those days was just getting the trash out. But that's the same with almost all contractor jobs that I've done in the past. From painting to carpentry to drywall, 80% of your time is spent prepping, 20% of your time is doing the thing that you came there to do. At least in a big cleanup like this. So 80% of our time was just removing things so that we could get to the surfaces. Once we have that uncovered, now we can actually do the cleaning, which takes no time at all. That part's a cakewalk. It's as easy as walking on cakes. What I'm saying is that sometimes I bake cakes and then tread upon them. I'll traverse a German chocolate. I don't even care, son. I'm crazy. Woo! For the main part of the cleaning, we used a combination of Mr. Clean's Clean Freak and Lysol. We didn't mix those together, and in fact, I try not to mix any cleaners together because you just don't know how they're going to react without a bunch of research. And really, reading is for wussies. But in this case, I know they're fine together. So basically what I use these for is Lysol will be the overall cleaner that we use to kill germs and to soften up big chunks of grime. Mr. Clean is what we use for more hands-on jobs with rags because it's in a little sprayer bottle. It's more powerful than Lysol, but for me, I like to use it on things like sinks, but on the floors, I'll just use that in spots for spot cleaning on the grimiest parts because I have so much less of that than I have of Lysol. But if for some reason you ever find yourself doing what I'm doing here, Lysol is the cheaper route, Mr. Clean is the easier route because it's more powerful. But also keep in mind that I believe Lysol can sanitize. I don't believe Mr. Clean is considered a sanitizing spray. Just keep all those things in mind if you ever have to do a crazy cleanup like this. The very last thing that we do in this house, and really in all houses, is sweep and mop the floors. Now, because the floors weren't so bad, especially after I did the Lysol and Mr. Clean spot cleaning, I just used a Bona because it's easy. And again, the floors weren't damaged, so the Bona worked just fine. If the floors are really bad, like really, really grimy, I'll use just a string mop and either Murphy's oil soap or a sanitizer like Lysol. Most of the houses that we do on this channel, I have to mop 5 or 6 times. This one only took 2. Then once we're done with the floors, we just take everything that we saved in the house that could be saved, and we just find a place to put it that's decorative or in a closet out of the way. And again, if you want to see this whole house being cleaned top to bottom, this is the third part in a playlist. I think I've called it Massive Cleanup or something like that because I'm not that creative. If you're thinking about supporting the channel financially, I would rather you support Jason instead. That username will be in the description along with links to all the channels that I mentioned in my shoutouts this week. Be sure to give them all some love because people who do free work like this are rare and they can use all the support they can get. People ask me all the time, how can I afford to do all these houses for free? The answer is YouTube. The more people watch the channel, the more houses I can afford to clean like this. And the same holds true with every channel that I mentioned in today's shout out. Members, I will see you all next Wednesday. For everybody else, I'll see you next weekend. Later.